Now, moving right along with visual arts, we've got a visual artist, a teacher, and an exhibitor, a person totally in the arts. And we're talking about Gail Peters. And Gail Peters is right here to my right. And Gail, you're from the Gilroy area.
My name is Carol. Sorry. My name is Carol.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's been a long day, and so sorry. Gail was the last one. This is Carol Peters, and Carol lives in Gilroy, and is a friend, a good friend of our good friend, Marilyn Abad Cardinelli. And Marilyn is the president of the Millennium Charter High School. She's the president of the board. And her husband tonight is in hospital. And he's having an operation on his knee. And we hope everything is going A-OK with them, with the Cardinellis tonight. So, Carol, let's back up. Tell me a little bit about your experiences up prior to getting full-fledged into the arts here.
Okay. Well,
what college, for example?
I went to San Jose State.
Yes.
And then to actually Santa Clara University. I always took classes, no matter if I was teaching and my children, because it gave me time to actually work. Because when you teach and then you have, you know, a family, it's pretty hard to go home and get your paints out on the dining room table.
Yes. Yes.
So I always took classes, and actually I took classes at Gavilan College, which is our local college.
Okay.
And I started teaching at 22 and loved it. Taught for 30 years and retired. I taught both at Gilroy High School and at the University of Santa Clara.
Okay. And Carol, what did you teach? You taught.
I taught painting and drawing.
Painting and drawing. Okay. What a coincidence.
Surprise,
yes.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the University of Santa Clara, I actually did workshops for elementary teachers that were in the graduate program. And to my shock, when I would, you know, introduce myself, and first time I said, well, how many art classes have you had? And they just were like deer in the headlights, and they said, we haven't had any.
Yes. Yes.
So I felt the big responsibility because, I mean, I was the one that was going to inspire them to go into their classrooms and actually, you know, explore the wonderful world of art. And to me, there's nothing more rewarding than the arts. So I love to see MCAET. I mean, it's just like a blessing to anyone that can be here. I mean, it's amazing.
Thank you. You know, speaking of deer in the headlights, the experience that a lot of our students have now in terms of the arts, now that we've gone through this whole period of drilling and killing and taking money away from the arts programs, we have a whole generation that deer in the headlights when you talk about art.
Exactly.
And so we have found at the Millennium Charter High School that we had to come up with a completely different curriculum just to get kids up to grade level. And the standards that many, many other school districts have and have had for years, and especially the more affluent ones, our children had none of that. Okay, and so we're going to have to back up. We're going to have to make sure that they get it. And over the last 10, 15 years, it's been especially bad.
Oh,
okay,
I know.
So, in an effort to correct this and to make our folks competitive, that the Millennium Charter High School is an attempt at getting everyone at the same starting point. And Carol, I know you have, you taught a workshop for our
Right,
students.
I did, and it was a joy.
It was
Thank you.
hugely successful, and you could see youngsters making this huge jump. And that's because you're a master teacher and
Wow.
have done that.
Thank you.
But I was really
Thank you.
impressed with the work that you did. Now, you have some samples of your own art.
I do. Actually, I brought 4 different pieces, and they all represent different approaches. And I think in my, journey as an art teacher, I was exposed to so many different things that I could do in the classroom, and I taught a variety of media. And at the end, I was basically having advanced students, and I was really doing it like an independent study. Because I would ask them, what are you interested in doing? Where do you want to go to college? Let's look up the criteria for a portfolio and work to that. So I had different kinds of media out at the same time. And so by actually having to explore that media myself, I have just kind of ventured out into all kinds. I'm not I'm not just an acrylic painter. I'm not one thing. I love just exploring, and I think that's given me this passion for just discovery. The first piece that I brought is for commission, and it's actually a landscape in Gilroy. But when I was in the green room waiting for to come on, everyone was thinking it was from around here. So I guess it can be wherever you want it to be. But a friend of mine lives at Country Estates, and they had a view from their home, and they asked me to paint the view. So when you're trying to capture what's in someone else's mind of what they want, that's another approach as far as where you start. You have to, I went to the home, I actually talked to them, I measured the wall, and where it would be hung, and asked them a lot of questions, took pictures, asked them if they had taken some favorite pictures, went home and started to sketch, all trying to get their vision of what they wanted. So you're working to somebody else's wishes and hoping that you can understand that enough so that your own, you don't want to compromise your own, style at all, but you want to actually embrace it and try to get something that they love. And in the process, I changed it a few times. Added a few more cows here and there. And they wanted the fog rolling in. They wanted it green. They loved the tree. They didn't really want a lot of buildings. So with that in mind, I just went ahead, and they were very happy with it. So I brought it tonight. It's not framed. They're going to frame it, but I couldn't fit it in my car frame, so I asked them not to.
Okay. Was that a commissioned art piece?
Yes, it was a commissioned art piece.
Oh my goodness. So that was very similar to, we were talking earlier about the Renaissance, specifically the Florentine academies or schools. And they worked on commission for everybody from the Pope to some Duke or whatever.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I have a couple more pieces that are on commission now, and it's really fun. It's a challenge.
Oh, I would imagine.
I stared at that blank canvas thinking, okay, get an inspiration. You have to see this in your head before you actually commit to putting a wash down.
Right, and that landscape that we were looking at, that was in our area here,
In
right?
Gilroy.
So it was in Gilroy.
And actually, people recognize it. And it's kind of like I guess, an area that is indicative of around here as well.
Right.
So
they have fog in Gilroy?
we do.
Oh my
because
goodness.
we're in a valley, and it comes right over the mountains. And it comes like in fingers, and that's exactly how they described how they wanted it.
They wanted fingers. Well, I live on the peninsula, and I think the last month we had like 1 day of sun, and fog is a part of our being. Okay, and what do we have? What's here?
Now this I'm very, very excited about. This is, I just finished this last week. I have never done anything like this. I've never seen anything like this, and so when I think of exploring another area and another venue, this is totally, my invention to my knowledge. I'm sure there's nothing new under the sun, and there's probably others out there, but I had never seen it. There's going to be an art exhibit called Journeys in Gilroy on Saturday, and so I'm part of that exhibit, and we're all to work to express a journey of somehow, you know, some kind.
Okay.
One of the artists is a poet-writer, and her journey, she was inspired by the Camino in Spain, where she walked the 500 miles and came back and wrote poetry.
Sure.
And, you know, did some writing. And so they asked me to join as an artist in the exhibit. So I was thinking, I didn't walk 500 miles in Spain.
Right.
But my journey, I was thinking to myself, was a personal one, and I wanted to incorporate the energy of my family somehow in a painting. So incorporating the energy, mixing that and the media, and to me, I thought, let's weave it together. So the first couple projects, or weavings I did, I had my two-year-old granddaughter and my 4-year-old grandson actually paint 2 canvases, and I wove them together, and they were wonderful. I was totally excited. Then I asked my son and his wife to do one, wove that together. Now this is mine, and what I did is I took 2 separate canvases and I painted them. I spray painted. I used spray paint, and then I went back with acrylic, and I did like just a rhythm and form and movement and color, and then I cut them in a wave, both directions. So I had to piece them together so that each piece matched.
Is this like a mosaic?
It's a weaving.
It's a weaving.
It's a weaving. You know. It's,
so this is actual fabric.
It's actual canvas.
Ah.
I cut the canvas in wavy lines, and I cut the other canvas in wavy lines, and I put them together, and I love the result. It's got a lot of rhythm and movement and color.
You can see that.
And you get close to it, and you can see the sparkle of the you know, the all the metallics coming through from the spray paint. So I'm very excited. I actually displaying just weavings for this show. I did 8 of them in a short period of time.
This is called a weaving.
I call it, it's a woven canvas. I don't know what you call it. I've never seen it, but it's woven. And it's a painting woven canvas.
How fascinating. And this is your personal journey?
Yes, to me, it's my invention. I've never seen this before. And I didn't know if it would work. So when I sat down and I had this giant canvas that I had painted, and it really was kind of beautiful, and I took my mat knife and actually started cutting it. It was very hard. And so I cut it in a wave, and then I cut the other one in a wave, and then I put both of them together, and then get all this wonderful movement. And I'm excited about it. I am very excited. And the other ones I experimented with painting on top of the weave, and some of them I actually went back with an airbrush and airbrushed on top of that. So it's wonderful having the ability to pick up whatever media that you want and change it if you don't feel like it's working. But I just love this one. It's just pure woven canvas.
Well, I'm very impressed, and I think that the judges will be too.
Well, thank you.
And okay, so we're moving right along. I think we've got another. Oh, this is something very different.
Yes, this is actually Robert Guerrero. He's a fighter. He just fought Mayweather at the MGM in Las Vegas, and actually he didn't win, but he held his own and did a real good, showed a lot of inner strength.
Okay.
So I had Robert over in my studio. I was doing a Carol on Creativity, which was a show for GAV TV, in which I teach painting and drawing and whatever creative kind of thing I want to do. And I had a problem with my arm. My arm was actually not functional. I had to have an operation. I had an ulnar nerve that was being pinched, so my hand was actually going. So when I shot the show with Robert, I could hardly hold an airbrush, and we did airbrush it. I had to cut a stencil for the airbrush, and I cut this very intricate stencil, and it was all covered up. And what you see here was the trial. I was just going to have him shoot the background with me, and then I was going to just discard it, and I had a canvas that I was actually going to do another one on. Because for the show, a lot of times you just do one that's kind of like fast and furious.
Right.
So we shot the background, this covering of acetate that was so intricate, every little detail. His eyebrows were cut out, the eyes were cut out, everything, so I could lift them and shoot it with an airbrush and put them back and lift and shoot. It's a long, long process. I did the background, and then I went and I had 3 surgeries, all the way down my arm, my hand, my thumb, everything. I was in this giant cast. Then I had to have the, you know, all the rehab, not rehab, but what do you call it, the where you know, physical therapy and everything.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So then I could actually, you know, I got back where I could hold a pencil and write. I couldn't write when I went in. I was like,
goodness.
And for an artist, I was like, oh my God, you know.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
So when I came back a year later, I looked at this and I had this acetate on it, and I thought, I don't want to do this. It's going to take too long, and I just want to get in and paint. I've been so like frustrated not having, you know, the ability to do that. So I took the acetate, I ripped it off, I grabbed the airbrush, and I just started shooting it. And then I thought, you know what, I know that when you hit pastel, it melts. So I got pastel, and I was like a wild person out there. I was like throwing down the pastel, picking up the airbrush, melting it in. And so this is the result. It's kind of an approach that changed direction.
Okay. And as a prize fighter, did you know you knew him personally?
I know him. Yes. He and his family went to Gilroy High School.
Oh.
And I had his family in class, and they were wonderful. You know, just great people. He used to come to my class, and so when he became a fighter, you know, I still see him. I mean, you know.
Well, hopefully he's,
yeah, he's looking for another fight. He hopes in September.
Oh.
But they're a wonderful family. Lots of class. Always gentlemen. You know, I had, I think, 3 of his brothers, and they were all great guys.
Okay. Well, I recognize this lady.
This is Marilyn Monroe. Now, this approach was done for instruction.
Okay.
And I did it actually with the Millennium Charter High School workshop that we were talking about before. And it was an instruction on how to start a drawing. So the approach to this one isn't wild and crazy and let's try this and let's try that. At a beginning level, what you want to do is give very, very precise, deliberate instructions, so everything is taken step by step, and you break the steps down so that's super easy. So we started out with a grid on top of a photograph, and then actually the lesson is a beautiful one because it teaches you just to look at the little square and take whatever you see in the photograph and move it over to your paper, one square at a time. So you're just looking at that one square. So on this, you can, if you look closely, there's squares still in the background. So I did this as an example. I pulled them out as much as I could for the, you know, with an eraser, but not a lot. So when you're approaching an art piece for instruction, it's a lot different. You don't have the liberty of just, you know, taking it anywhere you want to go. You are trying to get the student to understand what you're saying. You want to break it down so it's very, very easy. You want it to be clear, and you know what your end result is going to be before you start. There's no wavering here. So it's very deliberate, very methodical, and it's a completely different approach than the rest of the examples I've just shown you.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of any art is having in your mind what you really want to do first. You know, when you know you're doing it for a lesson, you have to do it a certain way. When you're doing it for commission, you do it another way. When you're just doing it for yourself, like I did the woven canvas, I approached that in just whatever I wanted to do. So I had that freedom and that luxury. So I think art is, you know, people think that it's not a lot of an intellectual process, but it really is. There's a lot more to it than just grabbing some paint and putting it down on paper or pen or canvas.
Right, and the previous artist mentioned that she likes to, I think, actually, as with what one would call abstract art, and would work directly with the medium itself, and then the concept or whatever would come out of that interaction. So with the Marilyn Monroe one, that seems very studied, very thoughtful in every stage along the way. Okay, you know, somebody once told me that with visual artists, they're not necessarily verbal artists. And in terms of describing what you do, you are fantastic.
Well, thank you.
And I think that's because you're also a teacher.
I think so too. I think that has a lot to do with it.
And in just capturing the experience of the moment and the different mediums that you work with, I think those are fascinating descriptions. Now, going forward in art, in visual art and commissioned art, where do you see that going?
For myself?
In yourself and in general?
I really love the fact that somebody's touched the surface. And I'm not taking anything away from graphic design in any way, because my son is a creative director, and he makes a great living at you know, doing graphics, and it's all computer generated. But I think there's something beautiful about having another person actually touch and have work to surface. So I think for me, I know he gave me a lot of equipment to start doing a graphic, because when my arm went, he thought, okay, Mom, now you can't do this anymore. You know, you can do it on the computer. And I was so frustrated, I just wanted to, you know.
And Carol, you hit it on the head. That's the direction of graphic arts, okay, and computer-generated art. So there are 3 students in this room here, okay? There's Tyler, there's Manny, and there's Tony. How would you explain to them, okay, in the study of art, okay? And they're clever guys, I can assure you. They could do it. How would you go about with these, and they're totally the computer generation?
Well, I think this story will tell you everything. My son was, you know, in San Diego. He had graduated, had his degree in graphic design, was doing well down there, but there was a great job in San Francisco. That's where he is now. So he came up and he had his portfolio, and it was all graphics, everything he'd done. And he used to do the covers for Sony PlayStation games. So, I mean, he was very, you know, talented and had a really great portfolio. So he gets to the interview. Now, mind you, he's flown up. He has a portfolio. He's going to spend the, you know, overnight and then go back. And they say, well, do you have any drawings? And he said, well, yeah, but not here. And they said, well, we're not going to hire anybody that we don't know can really draw. Because bottom line, you need to be able to draw mixed color, composition, all the elements of design. You have to have that as a basis before you get onto that computer, because that's what makes that work. So he came home, went through his bedroom, got his high school artwork. I said, you're not going to go there with that, are you? And he goes, Mom, I'm not going to go all the way back to San Diego and come back. So he went there, he showed it to him, and he was hired. But what I'm saying is, I think you have to have both. You have to have the knowledge. You have to have the experience of actually, to me, seeing that color mixed together, see what happens, and feeling it. Now, when people commission something, they want it to be a tactile, original piece.
Sure. Yeah,
Although
absolutely.
there's some beautiful things done on metals, and they're now taking them and they're doing giclées, which are, shot looking like paint. But I really think that the originality, and there's something about having that little bit of error maybe in there where you can't Photoshop it and can't correct it, and having a person actually touch it. I just got back from Italy, and I mean, you could just stand in front of David or stand in front of the masterpieces and just, there's something that communicates to you non-verbally that speaks to your soul, and I don't think something flat and shiny can do that. But I'm old school. I mean, I'm old school. So
Well,
I'm not always right about everything, but in my
Carol,
heart, that's
your school. Let's put it that way. And I think I had a similar experience in Florence, and I was in. I forget exactly where the David is. It's not, but
it's near the Uffizi. It's in
it's not in the Uffizi,
No, it's
but
not, but it's near.
close by. And there were thousands of people in there crowding around, and I felt this really odd feeling. There's something in this room, okay?
Exactly.
And you got it. There's some compelling. There's something in this room, and it almost forces you to turn around and look at this incredible sculpture that changed the direction of art. And out of the Dark Ages, out of the Middle Ages, and into the Renaissance, and you can see it in that marvelous sculpture. Well, this has been most elucidating, and I think at some time or another you've been an actress, because I think that you're very entertaining up here as well.
Thank you.
And one of the things that folks also warned about, that visual artists are not necessarily verbal, and it could be quite an evening. But the only stumble that's happened here is in the names.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay. This is again, you're watching MCAET, Comcast 36, and we're in the 4th day, believe it or not, of our premiere week. And every day something happens with these incredibly creative, innovative guys that run this. We didn't quite know how to do your easel thing, but look at how they've figured it out.
Amazing.
Fellas, that's innovation,
Thank you.
that's creativity. You're working with people that can make these adjustments. And that's something, and Jack's telling me to wind it up. And thank you so much, Carol.
Thank
and I
you.
hope to see you come back and help our students.
I'd love to.
Certainly a dynamic representative of the visual arts.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Okay. All right. So we'll take a brief break here, and then we will come back with our continuing sequence of artists and gallery owners and people that actually make a living in the arts.